hour-long talk on where did the Earth come from, where did the universe come from for that fact, and how did life start here on our planet. Now, this is going to be a deep dive of several of the major theories. And before we get started, I already know that the big Bible believers are going to come after me. The big religious folks are going to come after me. That's going to be in here too. Okay, we're going to be exploring all avenues. And one thing that I can't stand, I hate it, is when science people say God could not have had a hand in it, and I hate when God people say that science could not have a hand in it. Why couldn't science be the tool that God used? Just like when a carpenter uses a hammer and nails to get a job done, like, we don't know that. And that's what we're going to be talking about in this video, and how some of these things go hand in hand and kind of coattail off of each other. So the first theory I'm going to talk about is going to be my favorite of all. And that's going to be the Big Bang Theory. And the reason why it's my favorite is because, one, it's the most popular belief of how life even started, and how, the universe, the galaxies, everything else started. And what I want to be very clear on this is science says that miracles are not real as long as you grant them one miracle. And that's how everything started, because the Big Bang Theory is essentially two big giant pieces of matter collided into each other. Boom, it created what would become the foundations of what we have today. But science also says that matter cannot be created or truly destroyed. That's why they believe the equal mass of our entire universe is zero. So that's like a whole big thing if you want to go down that hole of negative and positive energies out there. Anyhow, these say that, matter cannot be created or destroyed. So the Big Bang Theory in itself is a miracle, which could be a godlike feat that we were going to talk about here in a little bit. Now, it says that, but matter cannot be created or destroyed on an elementary level, because technically it can be created from pure raw energy. That still gets us to the same point, though, of where did that energy come from? Energy has to start somewhere. So, there is no cause without an effect. There is no, action without a reaction. So if those two pieces of matter were created by raw energy, where did those raw energies come from? And then even after they turned into two pieces of matter, what led them? I mean, you're talking about how big and expansive the universe is. What led these two objects of matter on a collision course with each other? If you look at the vastness of space, the chances of two objects hitting each other are almost zero. That's how big the universe is. It's full of trillions of big giant masses that have so much space between them that it would be almost impossible for any two of these things to ever hit each other. Now, let's just go ahead and give them that miracle, that the matter was created from an energy that somehow created itself, right? After that miracle happened, how did life start forming? Now, that's when you get into tons of different theories. And to be clear on this, all of this is theories. No one truly knows, or they wouldn't continue to study the subject. If we knew the answer, we would stop studying that and move on. But there's tons of scientists, that's all they do, is try to figure out how life started here on Earth. A lot of scientists say that all life, all animals, insects, fish, what have you, started off as microorganisms and evolved into what we are today. And that's a word, like evolution is a word that is a big no-no in the church. I grew up in the church and everybody hated anybody talking about evolution. Once again, why couldn't have God made that the roadmap to how life works? No one is saying that evolution is fake, right? I mean, there's some people that say evolution is fake. But believing in evolution doesn't necessarily mean that you can't believe in God. Why can't that be the roadmap that he made for everything to exist and evolve to the point it is today, right? I know that a lot of people talk about the creation theory. We're going to get there in a little bit about how in Genesis the earth was supposedly created in 7 days. But it also says in the Bible that God has no concept of time. So his 7 days would not be our 7 days, right? So, and just so you know, science people and church people, I'm going to go on both sides of the fence. I'm going to play devil's advocate on both sides here. So just get over it, okay? You got to have an open mind in this world. It is so idiotic to not have an open mind on every possible avenue, okay? But we're about to get real wild and real crazy, because my personal belief is that we are DNA seeded onto this planet, which, once again, just because I'm about to talk about aliens, it doesn't mean that it wasn't the celestial design of how this happened. So my favorite thing to talk about is the ancient astronaut theory, or the DNA seeding. So we're going to talk about DNA seeding first. That is where a meteorite or an asteroid would have collided and hit the Earth, and on it carried the DNA to what we are today, or what many animals are today. Where some animals could have naturally evolved from the microorganisms on our planet, some of the animals and organisms could be brought in from other planets. Humans and octopus are two of those that I would believe in. So if you did not know it, it's a little bit different from person to person. There's about 1.5 to 7% of our DNA that we cannot match. It's called the ghost gene. We're going to talk more about the ghost gene here in a little bit. But up to 7% of our DNA, we cannot match it to anything else found here on Earth, which leaves you to wonder, did it not originate here on Earth? Did it come from somewhere else? And that theory is the same with octopus and a few other organisms on our planet. That doesn't seem to make sense. And ask yourself, is like meteorites and asteroids hitting the Earth, is it even possible they could carry life on them? And the answer is absolutely yes. It's not even a theory. We know for a fact it can. We have found meteorites and asteroids that carry all 5 of the major building blocks for DNA. We've also found meteors and asteroids that carry nucleic acids, amino acids, and proteins, aminos. So there's like, we have found all of the major building blocks for life on asteroids and meteorites. And if they were to crash land on this planet, and it's just like a perfect breeding ground for those cells to start evolving and morphing into other things over time, you know, and we're talking millions of years here, they could evolve into what we would recognize as intelligent life. And that's a really, really popular theory out there. And that's even one of the popular theories on how life started on this planet. You know, the Big Bang Theory happened. It created all the mass that we have in the universe, all the planets and suns and stars and everything. And then life would come from these little debris that have fallen. And we have found that meteors and asteroids that we have captured have already had naturally formed DNA, the building blocks of DNA on them from outer space. So like we know that right there is proof of aliens if you want the honest truth of it. We always say, are we alone in the universe? Like we know that we're not. The question is, are we alone in the universe as intelligent life goes? Because we know that the building blocks of life have been found on random ass meteorites and asteroids. So that question has already been answered. The are we alone in the universe is already no. Like we have found that already. Like that's a dumb question to even ask. The real question should be, are we alone in intelligence in the universe? Which is the dark force theory. That's a different video for another day. Dark force theory is really interesting, and we'll talk about that. Because I think it would be scarier that we are the only intelligent life in the universe than there being no other intelligent life in the universe. That's a much scarier thought. Now, this is something called the Cretaceous Paleogene line, and this is how we know. It's the smoking gun that we know a giant asteroid destroyed the dinosaurs, and a lot of scientists theorize that it could be the asteroid that brought that human DNA on it to create what we are now. So all over the world, no matter where you go in the world, whether you go to China or Russia or North America or South America, once you dig so deep in the earth, you will find this layer right here, and it is it's supposedly from 66 million years ago, and it's that Cretaceous Paleogene line I talked about. And it's a thin layer of sediment that exists all over the world, and it's uniform. And the reason why it'd be uniform is because when an asteroid hit this earth that wiped out what we knew as the dinosaurs and ended that era and started the era that we are technically in today, and this would be all the sediment that settled after that asteroid hit on this earth. It's uniform. It's literally all over the world. And like I said, it's science smoking gun that we know a giant asteroid hit this planet and destroyed all the life that was on it, or at least almost all the life that was on it. And that asteroid could have carried the building blocks of DNA that we have all today. Anyhow, we're talking about DNA coming off the asteroids. The other way that the DNA could have got here is the ancient astronaut theory. And there's a few routes of the ancient astronaut theory. The ancient astronaut theory is not any one definitive theory. It's just the theory that somehow we were brought here either on accident or on purpose from advanced civilizations in the past. So what this could mean, let's shrink it down. Instead of on a galactic scale, let's shrink it down to a local scale. Let's say me and you and 10 other people are on a boat, and we accidentally crash land on a deserted island. And this deserted island has everything that we need to survive, but there's no other people there. And we can't fix our ship to get off the island. So everybody that's on the island, over years and years, we have kids, we have babies, their babies have babies, and they evolve and they just make this island their home. And 4 or 5 generations, 6 generations down, when it's the great-great-great-grandchildren, they don't remember the story of how they arrived there. So they just live life like they've always known. And that's the theory of Earth, is that at one time there could have been a crash-landed ship, whether it was on accident or on purpose, like they might have had to flee here because their planet was failing or dying. And then just over time, we have lost the origins of our own stories. Kind of, because there's a lot of civilizations out there that say that's exactly how we started. There's a ton of indigenous peoples' beliefs and natives' beliefs that we came here from the star people and that, like, we are them, like we just continued living here. There's tons of civilizations that believe that. So it wouldn't really be lost. It's just a matter of if some of us believe it or not. And of course, there wouldn't be, different records and stuff existing. Because just like us, even though we have cell phones and we have all this advanced technology, if we crash landed on a deserted island, as soon as our cell phones died, as soon as our whatever broke, we would essentially have to start over just like cavemen would. And just like you have a cell phone, you don't know how to create a cell phone from scratch. Like, just because we have technology doesn't mean that we would know how to recreate it. If you took 20 random individuals on this planet and you crash landed them on a deserted island, even though we know about television, we know about the internet, we know about cell phones, we couldn't recreate 99% of our technology. Most people do not know how. And even if they know how, they wouldn't have the equipment there to do that. Like, yeah, you know how the internet works. Say you're like a genius and you know how the internet works. Well, you don't have the stuff there to make the internet. You know what I'm saying? And then over time, it does get lost. And that's exactly what that theory is that we are the remnants of a dying civilization somewhere, or we are a crash-landed pocket of a civilization. And that might be why aliens come and kind of observe the Earth every once in a while, because they might be looking at like, oh shit, this is the people, this is their cold case from 5 billion years ago, where they're like, oh shit, Xenon wrecked and we didn't know where he was. We actually found him, a billion years later, and the dude procreated with 1 million other people on a ship, and now there's a shit ton of them, and we're just going to monitor them and see what they do. Now we're like a big cosmic zoo or something, that's what I'm saying. Like we don't know, because in the Bible, I'm going to tie this back into the Bible. It says that God created us in His image. It never says that He created only us, and it also doesn't say that He created us here on earth. It says that He created the heavens, plural with an S, and the earth, which means that He could have created heavens like other places, and He also created the earth. It never says that He created only the earth, and that's something that a lot of people can't get past, and they can't get over it. And when He says He created us in His image, He doesn't, at no point did He ever say that He only created human beings on earth and that was it. He might have delivered a Jesus to a bunch of other planets, and other planets had human civilizations, and He made different pockets of us, which is the pond theory. We're going to go back to the ancient astronaut theory in a minute, but the pond theory, P-O-N-D, just like a pond, like fish swim in. The pond theory is interesting, and I love this theory for several reasons. If you're new to the pond theory, I'm probably about to blow your mind. So the pond theory is, imagine that Earth is a pond, and humans are the fish. So when you go to a pond, you are essentially an alien to their environment. Those fish are like, to them, that pond is their entire world. They do not have the means or the capabilities of exiting that pond on their own. But when you go fishing, you reel a fish in, you take it out of the pond, and you look at it. That's the equivalent to an alien abduction, essentially. I know it's a joke and it's funny, but it's the truth. When you catch a fish, you pull it out of a pond. This fish is like, what the hell is this? I've never seen, like, whatever that is. They might see a bush 20 feet away. You gotta think, they've never seen that. They don't know what that is. They might see a cow over there, and they're like, what the hell is that? You don't know, to the fish, that pond is its entire existence. It's a children's existence. It was its parents' existence. It is its entire existence. And the pond theory has a couple tie-ins to the ancient astronaut theory and some other ones. Because did you know how fish can get from pond to pond? You might not know this. This is a real scientific biology fact here for you. So you can take a pond. You can create a pond. You can take a bulldozer, dig out a pond, create a pond. Don't put no fish in there. Come back 10 years later, that pond will have fish in it. Do you know how? It's because when a bird lands in a different pond that does have fish in it, like a duck or a bird lands in this pond, sometimes fish eggs will get in its feathers. Or sometimes it might eat a fish. If it's a bigger bird like a crane, it might eat a fish, and that fish had fish eggs inside of the fish, and the bird just swallowed the fish whole. They don't chew them up, so it's not going to break the eggs. And then that bird goes to the next pond. And if the bird ate a fish that has eggs inside of it, when it poops the remains of that fish out, it can poop its eggs out into this new pond. It can also get eggs lodged in its feathers from swimming around in the old pond, and now the eggs get dislodged and come out in the new pond. You can do it. It's very easy. Create a new pond on your field. Come back 10 years later, there will be damn fish in it almost every time. And that is the theory of how we got here. We could be the cosmic drop-off of some other celestial creature. We could be brought here on purpose from one ship to another, just like what we talked about, the alien abduction stuff. You know, they might have picked up a human from planet A over there and then dropped him off on this planet, and then they recreated like we talked about earlier. It could be that, you know, they did it on accident or did it on purpose. We're the DNA remnants of a passing by asteroid. We don't know. There's a lot of theories on how that life started and why are humans so much more advanced than other animals. Because if we all started spawning from the same microorganisms, we might not all be the same intelligence, but we'd be a lot closer than what we are in intelligence, because humans are leaps and bounds and leagues ahead of any other living creature on this planet. Besides like dolphins and whales, if you guys don't know about dolphins and whales, if they had opposable thumbs and hands, they could build things just like we build things. Dolphins' brains are actually more complex than human brains. If you didn't know that, it's a wild thing. I'm going to get off on a tangent if I don't stop here. So, anyhow, going back to the pond theory, our Earth might be a pond to us, and we might be the fish. And we don't have the means to explore the outer space world, but it doesn't mean that a bird doesn't have the means to explore the outer space world. And of course, I'm talking about a metaphorical bird. It could be UFOs. It could be a more advanced civilization. It could be other creatures we don't know about. There might be creatures that can just exist in space that we don't know about. Okay, they might be an organic flesh and bone creature that can just exist in space. And we say, it's impossible. They can't do that because we can't do that. Imagine a fish going, people live out there. It's impossible. We can't breathe out there. It's the same principle. It's the same thing. Just because we can't do it doesn't mean that something else couldn't do it. And that's the pond theory. If you want to go down the darker side of this, look up sky whales. Sky whales is a crazy phenomenon. It's been reported over centuries. It's also a belief that UFOs are not an actual metallic ship, but UFOs might be organic, like creatures that come and go, almost like a jellyfish floating in the ocean. There's sky jellies, there's sky whales. Those are all really cool, very out there theories you can look into, but it's actually really neat. And if they do exist, we could have been the pooped out bird eggs or fish eggs, like we talked about earlier from the birds, onto this planet where it was hopping from pond to pond or earth to earth. And this whole theory about our DNA coming to Earth, whether on purpose or by accident, is actually got an official name. If you want to look it up and go down all those different theories, it's called panspermia. And it's spelled exactly how it sounds, panspermia. And that's, like I said, that's just the belief that essentially life was delivered artificially or purposely, biologically, like naturally, whether on accident or on purpose. So I'm going to move forward back to the ancient astronaut theory. This is the darker side of the ancient astronaut theory, where it is definitely not accidental. It wasn't just a big cosmic accident. That it was very orchestrated by a group called the Anunnaki. Now, the Anunnaki, we did a pretty big deep dive on the Anunnaki a couple months ago. You can watch the full video on our podcast. It's called Matt from Nomads on Spotify and Apple Podcast. Anyhow, that is really dark, but I found it very interesting. So the Anunnaki supposedly came here because their planet was failing and they needed gold. We talked about gold in a video pretty recently, and I'll just kind of hit the brief highlights on it because I'm not going to spill that all again for people who listen to that. Gold is very, very, very valuable to us. It is not valuable to the earth in the way we think of it. So gold is pretty abundant, and so is diamonds for that fact. But ancient humans, for whatever reason, found gold immediately and were like, this shit is expensive and it's cool and it's awesome and we all want it and we all need it. But we don't understand why all civilizations that never had contact with each other, we're talking about tens of thousands of years ago, South America, North America, Asia, Africa, wherever people were, they all started finding gold around the same time and started hoarding it in massive amounts. Even though there's other minerals in our earth that is much more rare and would be much more valuable, somehow all these civilizations found out how to get gold and all determined that this is my shit. Like, this is what I like. This is cool. And we don't really know why. Now, we know why today, because gold is one of the best conductors out there. We use it in tons of computer chips. We use it in tons of advanced technologies. And that's exactly why maybe if the Anunnaki did come here because their planet was failing, their civilization was failing, and they needed more massive resources of gold, they would have came to Earth and searched for gold. And because they were getting the gold, the early people that are like monkey see, monkey do would be like, oh, gold's important to them, it must be important to us. Or gold makes magic happen because to them, advanced technology would appear as magic. Maybe that's why they also wanted the gold. And that's why it's just crazy how every culture in the world has very different religions, very different beliefs, very different architectures, yet they all built the same pyramids in the same shape and lining up with the same constellations, and they all made like altars of gold. We don't know why they did that shit. Like, we don't know why they all sought that resource out. There was no reason for them to, and they shouldn't have even known how to obtain it in large quantities. Like, think about that. They didn't even know how to do irrigation or like common like shit, but they somehow figured out how to start mining into the earth to get specifically gold. Like, most of them didn't even have written languages yet, but they knew to go get gold. How and why? Okay, so the theory of the Anunnaki is that their atmosphere was failing, and they needed gold flake to spray into their atmosphere for essentially like what we would do with cloud seeding today with silver iodine. It's a really neat theory if you want to look into that, but that's not what we're talking about today. We're talking about how it is believed that when the Anunnaki came here, they were encountering what we would call as Homo erectus. Now, the belief is the Anunnaki lived for a super long amount of time compared to us, and we're going to get into that in a little bit. But essentially, they would have encountered Homo erectus, which is the early type of human, which we know for a scientific fact. And this is what the religious people do not like this. They do not like this because God supposedly made only us, supposedly to them, even though it never says that. We can prove scientifically that there was around 30 other humanoid species that we know existed. We know, like Neanderthal was not what we are today. We all have Neanderthal. There is no exception. We all have Neanderthal DNA in us today. We do. There's no exception. In my last video when I said that, people said, well, African Americans don't have Neanderthal DNA. Yeah, they do. In the 90s, we did not believe that African Americans had Neanderthal DNA in them, but with new testing, we have found out, yes, they do. It's just, on average, a lower percentage than all the other races in the world have. So everybody's got Neanderthal DNA in them. That's not even up for debate. That's a proven scientific fact. So we know that different humanoids existed over time, and what we are today is a combination of those humanoids. So the Anunnaki would have came across Homo erectus. They could have stitched their DNA with Homo erectus to make Homo sapien, a hyper-intelligent, very durable. Like, in terms of durability, we are way more durable than almost any other animal on this planet. Whether you want to believe that or not, we're animal experts for a living. We take care, like me and my wife, that's what we do for a living. Most animals, when they get sick, they want to die. They choose death. Humans, we'll outlive anything. Like, we're like the cockroaches of the earth. Like, we might be really sick and bad off, but we'll freaking survive or figure out a way to survive. We're the most adaptable, by far, creature on this planet, both in intelligence and physical durability. Like, do you not realize that we can outrun gazelles? Like, gazelles in Africa, they hunted them by just outrunning them. They would just run until the gazelles got tired, and we would just catch them. Because we couldn't run as fast as they could, but we could just run and run and run and run. And that's literally how, like, humans are so much more superior than any other animal on this planet when you truly break it down on every level. And if we can't beat them, we'll figure out a way to outsmart them or make a tool that can beat them. We did a whole video about that as well the other day, so sorry, there's a lot of tie-ins here. I got ADHD real bad. Didn't take my medicine today. So they might have found us because the Anunnaki, or they're not from here, they might not have been able to survive our environment and our climates as well as we could have. So they essentially had to create a working class creature, essentially. And this would have taken a long time, but for them, their lifespans would have been way longer. And biblical tie-in back here, that might be why early man lived so freaking long. Like, if you look at the Bible, there's tons of reports of all kinds of people living 700 and 800 years. It's because if they had a fraction of their DNA, they would technically live a long time. And this goes back to what I said about that ghost DNA earlier, where humans have 1.5 to 7% DNA. It's a little bit different based upon the person, that we cannot find the root of it. Like, we know where DNA comes from. We know where, like all these DNA have in common. Up to 7% of human DNA is not shared with any other living organism that we can find on this planet. And that might be because we share it with something that's not from this planet. And a lot of people say that that's the God percentage. And it could be. It could be. The Anunnaki belief is almost kind of like they were God, and the different ancient deities that we always hear, like when you're hearing about Zeus and Poseidon and Odin, those might have been the actual Anunnaki, because the reason why these people might have seen them for so long is they might have actually been here at that time. Now, Christianity, I'm not saying that it doesn't exist there either. In Christianity, instead of having different deities that can do like essentially supernatural deeds and miracles, we have different angels in Christianity. Those angels and Zeus might have been the same thing, and everybody saw the same shit, and it's just interpreting it in a different way. Like, imagine you're a human being back then, and you see a dude fly through the air. You don't realize that he's using some advanced technology like a jetpack or a personal helicopter. You don't understand that because you've never seen that. You don't know how to relate it. And you just know that he comes from the sky. That's why all ancient deities always come from the sky. Like Odin was in Asgard, beamed up in the air. If you see a rocket launch, it looks like a beam going in the air, and it even leaves a trail behind it. If you look at Zeus and all those guys, yeah, they came from the sky. Maybe they did. Maybe they were using ships. The Bible even appears to talk about alien abductions several times. Like it talks about them going into chariots of fire. Well, imagine today if you saw a rocket launch or a plane takeoff where a jet fuel comes out of the back of it. It would look like, a chariot's just something that people rode in. That was the word for it. And then chariots of fire, watch a rocket launch. Fire comes out all over the place. I think they were seeing things that they could not explain. And so instead, they have these chariots of fire, all this other stuff. Like, they have different things that they were that's how they knew to relate it. And that's how they knew to talk about it. Back then, and that's a lot of the reasons why too. I think like dragons could have been metaphors. We did a whole video on dragons. I'm not saying dragons didn't exist, but dragons could have been metaphors because it's breathing fire. A plane taking off shoots fire out the back. We know this, and it flies through the sky. Dragon flies through the sky. It talked about the dragon having hard scales. A plane is made out of metal. It's very hard. There's a lot of things that I think could have been related back to things that they could understand or translate. That might have just been advanced technology they were seeing. And these gods to them that were living generations and generations to our standards might have just been living their average lifespan. Because to us, we're like, wow, the average lifespan of a human is 75 years. That's longer than most animals. But think about a fly. To a fly, we are gods. I mean, a fly's average lifespan's like a few days, right? To a fly, we might as well live an eternity. So, that's what I'm saying. Like, they could have been seeing these Anunnaki that have extraordinarily long lifespans, and we could have been like, oh my God, Odin's been ruling for 1,000 years. 1,000 years might have just been his average life. And that might have been why we saw religions come and go as well. Because just like we see when presidents come and go, they get like cult followings. Like there's some cult Trump supporters. There's some cult Barack Obama supporters. It's like cult followings. So maybe Odin was ruling for this time to this time, and that's why that religion was so popular at that point, because Odin was in control at that point. And then Zeus was the big popular religion for a while with the Greek mythology. Maybe that's because that was during his reign for that 1,000 years or 1,500 years. Maybe that's why we see all these different major religions have their heydays and their highlighted time periods, is because that was the ruler over Earth that time, that Anunnaki government civilization that was here, and then now they're not here anymore because they got the gold they needed and they left. Or they are still here among us, and they just look like us, and we wouldn't even notice that they're that much different because our DNA is their DNA. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's a ton of theories when it comes to Anunnaki, but essentially, the main part of it is that they created us. And what's funny, tying that back into the Bible, if you look at the scene where Adam was used to create Eve, that would be exactly how they would splice DNA. Like, it talked about how Adam was put to sleep, kind of like how we put people to sleep with anesthesia today. And what's funny is back then in the Bible, they didn't know how to do surgeries like that. But that's almost exactly what it's describing. Is like he was put to sleep by magic. Okay, well, anesthesia would look like magic. It would look like magic sleeping gas or powder to somebody, And then it said that it used his rib to create Eve. Adam could have been the very first Anunnaki that was used, and they took his rib to use his DNA to go over there to Eve and create what we know as Homo sapien today. Why do I think that it was Adam from the Bible? Go look at who the first man was when they talk about the Anunnaki. Guess what his name was? In Mesopotamia, that's where the Anunnaki belief started. The original person was Adamu. Adamu. It's spelled exactly like Adam in the Bible with a U on the end. And we know that all biblical names have been whitewashed. Like Matthew's real name from the Bible was Mathalalika. So they had a lot of crazy names in the Bible that we have whitewashed. A lot of people don't know that. You might not know that either, that Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, all that stuff, that was not the original names of the people in the Bible. It was changed around 1400 AD to the names that we know of today. It might have even been changed earlier than that. No, that was the King James Bible. I'm sorry, the 1500 AD. Around 700 AD. I did a whole video about this in the past, if you want to check out the exact date. But it's around 700 AD that we see the whitewashed names that we know of today. So Adam could have very well been Adamu, and that would explain why when Adam and Eve had, children, and you have Cain and Abel, Cain kills Abel, and then after Cain killed Abel, he had to go take a wife of the accursed people and had to go live with them in the land of Nod. What the hell was that? If Adam and Eve were the only people, and then Cain and Abel were their kids, and I know they had other kids, but who the hell was this whole civilization that was over there? Was that Homo erectus that was used to stitch our DNA to make Homo sapien, and he had to go live back with the kind of dumbed down, unevolved people? Like, there's a lot of stuff there, and that's why I'm saying, like, I don't think that it has to be one or the other. I don't think it has to be science, and I don't think it has to be God. I think the Bible could track real events that really happened. They might just not have been able to explain it the right way that we would be able to explain it if we saw it today. And we probably still wouldn't be able to explain it because we wouldn't know what to make of like star people and all this stuff. It's really wild when you start looking at all the, they talk about Nephilim and all this different stuff and the angels mating with the humans back then. And that could have gotten out of hand of the Anunnaki freely mating. Instead of doing it in a scientific world, they could have been freely mating and it created what we know as giants and everything else, because the Anunnaki were supposed to be very, very large in their own right, 7 to 10 foot tall on average. So that's all I'm going to talk about on that one. There's a lot more you can go dig into that. The Anunnaki has days and days and days and days worth of content there. It is a truly blinding rabbit hole you can go down on. That was a weird way to say it. Rabbit hole you can go down in. Still don't know if that was great. But we're going to talk about the young Earth theory next. And the young Earth theory is the one that I get challenged with all the time by people that are what I call Bible thumpers. I don't mean that negatively. I just mean that as a term of they're so blinded by faith that they don't have their minds open to anything else, and they're not open to a lot of conversations. Bible thumpers is not a term I use for just people who believe in the Bible. That's because I don't know if I made it clear or not. I believe in it. I just don't believe it was what we truly thought. Right? I don't think they were interpreting things the way that we realize it. And we know that, like, King James, that horrible bigot, like, the King James Bible was awful, like, very reworked and very edited from what the original, like, Ethiopian Bibles were. And even the Bibles before the Ethiopian Bible. Like, I think there's so much editing that we don't know the truth anymore. And I think, out of all the books, I think there's like 33 books of the Bible that are removed from the Bible that are put in the Vatican. I think those books would probably explain what I'm talking about, this, a lot more. But there's I think a lot of government powers would be scared to let that truth out there because it might make us feel inferior. I mean, like, what if you found out for a fact that our God that we call is a real God, but he created us for a super mundane reason? Or, maybe the Bible wasn't even meant for us. Maybe the Bible was meant for the Anunnaki, and we just like found their storybook, or found their not their storybook. That's not a good way to put it. We found their like reason for existing, and we also thought it was our reason for existing, yet we're just like some science-made pet. Now, the young Earth theory is my least favorite, and not because it's the most rooted in like faith in the Bible. It's my least favorite because it seems to have been created in the 17th century to make the Bible make more sense, and for the Bible to like seem like it is perfect without any flaws, which it's not. Like the Bible is written by man. We don't even know who wrote the majority of the Bible. A lot of people like to say it was Paul. The truth is we think it was a collective of people. If you can look it up right now, we do not know who wrote the majority of the Bible. And it's been edited and translated so many times that things can be, obscured. So the younger theory says that the Bible is only about 6,000 to 10,000 years old. They pretend that either the dinosaurs never existed and that dinosaurs are fake and it's just a conspiracy, or they think that dinosaurs did exist and they lived alongside early humans. Which in the book of Genesis, it does say that giants walked the earth in those days. It talks about Behemoth and Leviathan. It talks about there was one story in the Bible where like a clawed creature grabbed a lady and then carried her away. Maybe on that part they're right. Maybe early man did walk the earth with dinosaurs, and the Great Flood killed them all off. And the Great Flood is what they used to make it seem like the earth is way older than what it is. So they said the reason why, we go down all these sediment layers and that we find, all these different sediment layers, it said the Great Flood mixed and kind of, gargled all that stuff up, kind of like it was in a blender. And that's why we have all these layers of sediment that would make it seem like the earth is, billions or millions of years old, when actually it's very new. Is because the Great Flood did all that. And the Great Flood is not a theory. I don't know what you guys know or don't know about the Great Flood. There's been believed to be two Great Floods. One was the Great Flood and one was the Great Mud Flood. And the Great Mud Flood is the theory that our earth has actually been reset like 7 times. Or more or less. But the most general belief is that the earth has been reset like 7 times in our civilizations. But we know that a flood covered a majority of the earth at one time. And we know this for a fact. Like, we can see it. There's a sediment layer that you can absolutely see. So I'm not doubting that happened. What I'm doubting is that they're using the genealogy of the Bible of Genesis, going, God created the earth on day 1 and day 2, and then, day 1 through 7. And they're taking it as each one of those days was a literal 24 hours, which it says later in the Bible that God has no concept of time. So his amount of days, day 1 through 7 to him could have been millions of years, because to him, like, there would be no concept of time. It would be foolish to think that some celestial being like God would have any care in the world about a time period or a timetable. And we were the ones that came up, like, no one said like, hey, like, a day is 24 hours. It's, we came up with all that stuff. Time is very man-made. It's abstract. It's not real. We made it up. So I don't think that has anything to do with it, right? But that's what they use, is that those 7 days in Genesis were 7 legitimate 24-hour days. And then, bam, the genealogy's in there, and the genealogy in the Bible is very detailed. It's the most boring part of the Bible you can read. It's like, so-and-so begot so-and-so, and he begat so-and-so. And it's just very dumb. Like, I'll just be straight. Like, it is so stupid. I don't care if you hate me for saying that or not. Like, it's pointless. But people that use the young earth theory use that timeline very, very strictly. And they use the timelines of some people living, 700-800 years to justify other things. And so they say that God created the universe looking aged already. So, like, if science, and this is what they use to battle when science goes, well, we can carbon date this rock and see that this rock is 4 million years old. Like, to combat carbon dating, they say that God created the universe aged already. And what they mean by that, and I get this, if you're looking at this theory, if Adam was the first person that was here on Earth, and boom, Adam just appeared out of thin air, out of the dust, the dirt, that Adam was created a man, like a grown man. Like, he wasn't, the Bible doesn't say that he created a baby, and then the baby just somehow took care of itself and grew up. No, it says that, bam, Adam was created already as an adult. So if he could create Adam already as an adult, he could create trees already fully mature. He could create the earth already aged, so it could appear. So, like, that's their magic explanation of it. And you know what? I'm not saying they're wrong, because none of us know. I even said earlier we'd be foolish to act like we know. I'm not saying they're wrong. But, like, there's no science rooted into it. There's no, like, math rooted into it. It's just God said it, so, like, he just, bam, there he is. Oh, if you're saying this rock is 10 million years old, la, 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 he probably made it 10 years old, la, 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 like, he made it 10 million years old already. Like, like, I feel like that's what this theory is it's just a in-your-face, like, see, we're right, you're wrong. Like, and anybody who talks about this, I've never seen anybody be able to talk about it logically. They always get really emotional really quick when they talk about this. And then if you have any challenging thing, the default of this theory is always the fallback on, well, God made it that way. God made it 10 million years old. God made this earth to appear like it's already 4 billion years old, because he can do that. Okay. Who's to say that he also didn't make it appear 4 billion years old, because it is 4 billion years old, and he created those two first bits of matter, and he, put them on the trajectory course to each other. Like, the same people who block out the possibility that God exists, and the same people who block out that science could exist, are both wrong, because I do think it is a combination of it. Or maybe I'm wrong. Who the hell knows? Maybe I'm wrong completely. But and that's the whole point of doing these videos and talking about it, is because I think it's very important to have a open platform dialogue, because in today's world, so many people are so quick to cut somebody else off. Like, if you say you support Trump, half the world's going to go, I can't believe you. We can't even be friends. And then on the flip side, if somebody would have said, well, I supported Joe Biden, I can't believe you. We can't be friends. I'm going to, I hate you now. Like, I literally hate you. Like, it's, to me, that's all so dumb. And I know people say, well, politics is important. Yeah, but you don't have no say in it. I don't have no say in it. I truly think it's been a rigged game from the beginning, and the choice of all of that stuff is an illusion. The choice that we can make, though, that's not an illusion, is to, like, be open-minded to each other, be respectful to each other, listen to each other talk. If you want to talk about a theory, I would love to hear it. If I want to talk about a theory, I would hope that you have an open mind to also hear it. It's, and not to be hated for having those thoughts. Now, I can hear your theory and then afterwards go like, well, I don't really believe that, or, oh, I think that's kind of dumb, or, like, whatever. But that doesn't mean that I should hate you as a person, or should not have to listen to what you have to say. And I would hope that same respect would be flipped around the other way. And I know this comment section is going to be filled of both sides. People that are like, oh, I agree with what you're saying, and people that will say, oh, I hate what you're saying. And what I don't like about that, on either side of that, the people who agree, the people who disagree, is their minds might have already been made up before they even listen to me talk. And they're just commenting, and with their personal opinion, without ever hearing some of the facts, some of the opinions, some of the what ifs. And when people talk like I'm talking right now, no one really sways their mind. That's when we get in a closed loop where it's not good for anybody. There's so many people that talking to them is pointless to talk to them, because their beliefs are already so rooted in their brain that there's no possibility that they're wrong. So they'll never open their mind up to other things. And I'm no different. There's some things that I'm unwilling to move on, and I'm working on that. There's some things that I would need to be more open on, and I think that's the first step that everybody needs to take for us to finally get some answers out there, and hear each other out, and start to, like, come together as a people, instead of it's you versus me. Like, every major subject right now, whether it's politics or war or economy, it's like, if you don't think the same way I think, you're the enemy. And instead, you should be going like, oh, you don't think the same way I think? Well, let's hear why. And let's see if there's some, like, middle ground we can get on, I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you want to watch us on Spotify, YouTube, or Apple Podcast, it's called Matt from Nomads. And then on YouTube, it's called Nomads Animal Reserve. So Spotify, Apple Podcast, Matt from Nomads. YouTube is Nomads Animal Reserve. That's just audio only versions of this. This doesn't have the video on it. If you're wanting to see us on Spotify, oh my gosh. If you're wanting to see us on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, it is going to be Nomads Animal Encounter. We hope to see you on one of those guys. Definitely give us a like. Definitely give us a follow, and share this around with anybody else that you might think would find this interesting.